we got several different stories to cover from the outside of the UK. It's time for another episode of the World's News Round. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of the World's News Round. This has been recorded on the 9th of April at around 8 p.m. UK time, just for reference on these stories. Where we cover stories on this episode, we cover stories outside the United Kingdom. And to start with this one here from Al Jazeera with the headline of the Philippines are beefing up the northernmost defences amid China tensions. Now, I've already covered several stories with regards to China and the Philippines, but I want to do just one more to kind of give us a bit more a background of some of the people and the lives that they're living here on Maduros Island, which is going to be affected by what's happening really with regards to this this uneasing of tension, shall we say. If it wasn't for this dispute over the seas, I think the Philippines and China would have pretty fine relations. China has always had the preconception that they own far more of the ocean around them than they should, and they believe that because of who they are, they believe they have to have that fundamental right. But it's always been said by the United Nations that the seas around the Philippines are basically theirs, and the islands that the Philippines owns are there, and the seas around them are theirs as well. But China has a different position on it. And this is something that, unfortunately, is not going to be going away anytime soon, much to our frustration. So let's read a bit more. This is a first of a two-part series from the Philippines' most northern province. So it's entirely possible I may read the second piece on the Snowflake Corner, but we'll wait and see. But let's have a read, guys. So the militant detachment on the Philippines' northmost islands faces northwest towards the setting sun as the country's biggest potential adversary. The island of Maduros was uninhabitable until 2016, when the Philippines military planted a flagpole at its highest point and started building a fisherman's shelter. Now, about 15 soldiers are deployed in rotation in the rocky outpost, amid increasing tensions with Beijing over the disputed South China Sea and Beijing's growing assertiveness towards Taiwan, which lies at just 142 kilometers, 88 miles away from those lights flickering in the distance during the night. In February, the Philippines Defense Secretary Gilargo Talarosco visited Maduros and pledged further improvements to the military positions in Bahrain, the province that includes the island which he calls the spearhead of the Philippines. With the Philippines' lightly funded military relied on only basic equipment and technology to fortify the island, the United States is providing crucial assistance. I think it's absolutely clear that without a shadow of a doubt that if it was not for the United States as its staunch ally, that assistance there, I think it's entirely possible that China may have subdued the Philippines in some way, shape, or form, and I'm pretty sure that the Philippines would give up more ground in order to keep China at bay as well. Its military will begin constructing a new warehouse and military outpost and port improvements this month on the islands of Bataan and Iberitic, according to several sources. The two countries also hold joint military exercises on Bataan and, for the first time, on Itaput. If I mispronounce any of the names, I do apologise. The country's northernmost multi-arsenal as part of an annual Balkanton drills, which gets underway on April the 22nd. So they always do drills, obviously. South Korea, North Korea in the Asian area, and they need to because of the tension between, obviously, Korea and South Korea, and then obviously nations that are close ties with close to China. Obviously China and Taiwan, obviously, as well. The Philippines has turned towards its long-standing military alliance with the US after multiple confrontations with China in the waters of the South China Sea. Manila and Washington have a mutual defense treaty, and the US is concerned not only about the South China Sea, a major international trading route, but also Taiwan, which is claimed by Beijing. We need to upgrade our defensive posture, Rodrigo Loquillo, a public information officer for the Army's Northern Luftwaffe Command, which also covers Bataan, who told Al Jazeera. We realise the island of Bataan, especially Maduros, are strategic areas where we can place our forces and defence materials. So this is obviously soldiers stationed on Maduros and travel up to 10 hours of renting fishing boats to reach the island here. They don't look like comfortable waters from that picture. They look pretty rough there. Bataan is an island produces about 19,000 mostly indigenous residents located halfway between Taiwan and the northeastern coast of Luskan, consists of 3 permanent inhabitable islands and 7 others including Maduras. Baines will play a strong buffer zone in case of any eventuality in Taiwan, said Chester Chalsisa, the founder of the Malaysian-based think tank International Development and Security Corporation. It's like building a maritime fortress against foreign aggressors. Beijing has strictly opposed every improvement on Batanes, which falls within some versions of its 9-dash line. China has long used the line to suggest its expansive claim to the South China Sea that can be traced back centuries, and has ignored the 2016 international court ruling it had no legal basis. Yeah, there was a court hearing in 2016 and they were told, no, you can't have that much, but they completely ignored it basically. Recently, Beijing has begun diplomatic efforts to chip away at ties between Bataan and provisional governments and the US. In March, Batane's governor Maruku Karato announced that the US would help construct a civilian port on the Bataan island, which would help accommodate Filipos fleeing Taiwan in the event of a conflict. The planned port will also boost strategic capabilities for the Philippine military, Carrasco has said. Just more than a week later, Chinese ambassador Hyong Dong-shiking visited Kaikyo in Bays and donated computers to Banai State College. Interesting. 4 days later after that, Kaido told Reuters news agency that the US would not be helping with the port after all, and the Philippines would handle the project alone. That's a shame. The Chinese embassy in Melania released a statement on the same day saying that any attempts to implement the Taiwan question in the maritime dispute between China and the Philippines is dangerous. The offices of Kaido and Hume did not respond to Al Jazeera's request for comment. Yeah, so it's a sleepy place now, and soldiers play basketball and they're helping pass the time there on the island. For his part, President Fernando Marcos Jr. has been talking though. After his latest incident with China at the Second Thames Water Shoal in the South China Sea, we've covered that on numerous occasions here on the channel, with the Philippines accusing China of firing water cannons at its boast, he promised to take it as yet unspecified proportionate and reasonable countermeasures. And this week he will be in Washington, D.C. for a trilateral summit with US President Joe Biden and the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Clearly he will be bringing it up and saying, look, you guys need to do something because this is a problem. Need something done, basically. A senior official in the Philippines Department of Foreign Affairs said the summit was not targeted at any specific country, although all 3 have expressed concerns about China. We can expect an alignment of views among the 3 countries on the recent instances, Acting Deputy Undersecretary Hans Mohammed Shubin told reporters on Friday. If Barbados is the country's northern spearhead, Mauritius is the true tip of that spear. But merely reaching the island is difficult. There are 2 small helipads, one damaged by a recent storm, which are only used when top officials and foreign visitors visit the island, usually transported in Black Hawk helicopters. For the Marines and the volunteer reserves who rotate on and off the Mauritius, getting there means a rough, loud and smelly ride on a small boat rented from local fishermen, which takes as long as 10 hours from Basco. When the weather is good and when conditions are bad, they do not go at all. The small port of Mauritius is mostly destroyed by a typhoon, so boats cannot dock there for long. Soldiers toss supplies from boat to land, then climb over jagged rocks and dodge crushing waves to get back to the barracks. We admit that our government is unable to procure the necessary transportation, Lewis said, but we cannot be immobilized because of that predicament. So soldiers and volunteers grow vegetables, raise chickens, and use the island's Starlink internet connection. Yes, Elon Musk Starlink that allows everyone to connect to the World Wide Web, of course. That building on the right there seems pretty fancy, but from the looks of it there. The Marines have a wish list of upgrades, including at least 1 speedboat of their own to be a more effective monitoring equipment. There is already a challenge to maintain the existing infrastructure on Mauritius. The desalination plant was installed in 2021 but stopped working 6 months later, and soldiers have been forced to haul drinking water onto the island since. Small solar power station often malfunctions, plunging the detachments into darkness. That's not ideal. The island's rotating defense crew is armed with rifles but no heavy weaponry and would need support if they were attacked. Sounds very vulnerable, doesn't it? We'd like to bring some machinery and heavy equipment, but we cannot transport it, said Dennis Arita, a wing commander of the Philippines Air Force. In March, a group of US Marines visit Mauritius to evaluate the possibility of landing a V-22 Osprey helicopter on the island during April's joint military exercises. but quickly concluded its helipad was too small. Madeira's strategic position gives Malaya a perch over the Bashi Channel, which runs south of Taiwan and is a shipping superhighway. Marines use an automatic identification system designed for ships at sea to broadcast their position to communicate with vessels on the channel. At the moment, it is mostly used to challenge Taiwanese fishing vessels that stray too deep into Philippine waters, but Taiwan regularly accuses China of sending ships and aircraft through the channel. Chinese research vessels have strayed into Philippine waters near Madeiras in the past, and 2 such vessels were recently spotted lurking near the Philippine Rides to the east of the northern island of Luzon. With the Chinese Coast Guard hindering Philippines maritime operations in contested parts of the South China Sea, noticeably around the second Thomas Shaw, where contagious of sailors live on board the rusty Serene main warship. Luzon said Madeiras is badly in need of the directive radar system. With jamming capabilities, it would help the Philippines respond more effectively to potential incursions in the south in the Chinese Coast Guard. Yeah, a radar system on that island would suffice, considering its geological position. We observed that their capacity to mark much higher compared to ours, Luzon had said. The US is currently studying the possibility of installing radar on Madeiras that could reach as far as Japan, the military source said. The Washington-backed improvements would affect not only Madeiras but the other provinces' islands. Soldiers, they don't look like soldiers to be fair, but maybe it's just because of the terrain that they're on. Last year, the US and Philippines stimulated retaking Balkan islands from a hostage foreign power. They plan to do the same this year in Ibarit, according to 2 military sources. The 2023 exercise also saw the US attempt to land a HIMARS missile launcher in Bako, another outpost on the island chain, but found its May seaport could not accommodate its weight. US military engineers will begin upgrading that port this month, which could potentially allow landing craft utility ships to dock there and unload heavier military equipment, the sources said. The military is also preparing to open a new operation base in Matariko on the west of the Balkan Islands, with a functional helipad and roam for about 30 Navy and Marines. The new civilian port, which Serco recently said US would not be involved in constructing, will be located on the east of the island, according to Marine source, giving boats another option on the frequent occasions where seas are west-facing ports are too rough. The combined upgrades would be part of a plan to accommodate the estimated 160,000 Filipinos in Taiwan, most of whom work in manufactories, fishing, or as caregivers, should they have to flee a conflict there. Lutro said the military plans to evacuate Filipinos directly from the northern province of Iligo and Calagan on the mainland of Luzon due to the scarcity of resources in Baton. Would be better if they can travel a bit longer, he said. That's them eating fresh fish on the island there. Quite a big catch there. Bananes has already suffered frequent typhoons and earthquakes, and the province would use its experience responding to national disaster should it find itself on the doorstep of war. The worst thing could happen is if China would pursue its intent to invade Taiwan, Luxo said, it would almost be the same as a disaster. Back on the video, the flagpole on the top of the island's tallest hill stands barren after the latest Philippine flag was torn down by the wind. They keep putting the flag up and it keeps flying, it keeps going away because it's too windy there. Soldiers will soon move into a new 2-story building, and since last year they have been able to access the internet via Starlink. They pass the time growing vegetables, raising chicken, and catching coconut crabs, with the reservists to sell to people on other islands in the Batines. As Firefly darts through the air and faraway fishing boats play their trade in the distance, the soldiers may kinniku, a raw seafood dish similar to chivi. This is part of the Philippines, one young volunteer reservist said. I'm ready to die for it. Interesting. In the next part of the series on the Philippines' most northern province, we will report from Elebe when indigenous people are signing up on reservists. Interesting. Interesting story to say the least, to know about the islands a bit more specifically in detail. I find it fascinating to say the least. Link for it will be in the description, of course, if you guys want to check that out. But I will say, obviously, that they need to obviously have these defences in place, obviously, for where potential, not just obviously the potential threat of China, but what in the circumstances of what's going to happen if China does successfully invade Taiwan, then what's the outcome of those who are in the Philippines, and how the best respond to them. And I think that's really important. That's definitely going to be something that's a situation that's not going to go away anytime soon, guys. But an interesting one to say the least. So I did enjoy reading that one. This next one, guys, is it is an article from Sunday, but obviously it does relate to what's happening in Europe with regards to the Slovakian elections there. So the ally of Slovakia's pro-Russian prime minister wins the presidential election. Hold on, let me make sure that I've got it on the right one. Sorry, just double checking. Yes, this is a very interesting turn of events. So for those, I would recommend checking out. BowlerHatMan did a very good video on this as well, and I recommend checking out his video on this as well, with regards to this story as well. Essentially, there's also down to history here between Slovakia and Ukraine. Now, when I think this also goes as far back as 2014. So when the gas supplies were kind of cut off from Russia, that go through Kiev so there was gas supplies that go through there to Slovakia. Slovakia was cut off of its heating, its oil and gas, I believe, from Russia, because it got its supplies through Ukraine. And I believe this was back in 2014. And it was during winter when this happened. And Slovakia was obviously not very happy after that. Not very happy. And they have not forgotten that. And the Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister here, is obviously making the point here that, and it's a very intrusive point, is reminding people of the damage that has caused to the people of Slovakia, and it's made the point of we should be looking after our own. What has Ukraine done for us? This kind of premise, and it has worked. You know, his policies and the way he's come across, it's appealed to the people of Slovakia. Have Slovakia been in good stead under a democratic, more EU favourable rules? And I think, to a certain extent, some people obviously don't think so, and they wanted something different. And whatever you might think of him, he's obviously appealed to those within the country. So let's read a bit into this. So, Slovakia's nationalist left government candidate, Peter Pellegrini, emerged victorious in the country's presidential election on Saturday, solidifying the influence of the pro-Russian Prime Minister Robert Fico over Slovakia. Pellegrini, aged 48, emphasised that his win signifies support for the government's agenda and a rejection of an opportunist opposition power centre, a reference to outgoing Liberal President Zalika Zanakalka. Again, apologies for mispronunciations of the names. Fico, who begins his fourth term last October, has shifted Slovakia's foreign policy towards pro-Russian positions and initial reforms in the criminal law and media regulations, raising concerns about the erosion of the rule of law. Pellegrini secured 53.26% of the vote, while pro-Russian opposition candidate Ivan Komnik garnered only 46.73%, according to the results from 99.6% of voting districts. So it wasn't a case of like absolute certainty. That it was still 56 to 43 is still pretty tight. So not everyone was all on board, that's for sure. Although Slovak's president wields limited executive power, they can veto laws or challenge them in the Constitutional Court. They can also nominate Constitutional Court judges, potentially shaping political conflict over the Fico reforms, which aim to reduce penalties for corruption. Fico's coalition, which includes the party led by Pellegrini, halted Slovakia's official arms shipment to Ukraine. And that's one thing that's definitely going to stop. Any kind of aid or support for Ukraine is going to end with Slovakia's new government, that's for sure. Fico's criticised what he perceives as Western interference in the conflict, cautioning against Slavic nations engaging in hostilities with each other. Pellegrini portrayed Kostić as a warmonger due to his support for arming Ukraine and suggesting that conflict might involve Slovak troops in the neighbourhood country's conflict, a claim Kostić had refuted. So it is. I do need to read up. Do need to find more on this, but I recommend checking out BowlerHatMan's video on this, and I thought it was a very fascinating story on it. But what I will say is obviously how the relationship between Slovakia and the rest of Europe will be interesting to see going forward. And obviously the fact that he's more of he's been regarded as a leftist, but still a pro-Russian sort of thing. I wouldn't go far to say he's a puppet. I wouldn't go that far. But there have been reports of him obviously meeting Putin. I have heard reports of that. But I wouldn't go as far to call him as a Putin stooge. I would not go that far. But that could change obviously over time. The other thing, one of the other key points as well, is that's an interesting point that I've heard as well, is that because of Viktor Orban and his position, he may have found a new ally within Slovakia here as well. So this could give him the support he needs in Hungary. Obviously, right now he's under quite a lot of pressure with recent protests, obviously there, and his population is not very good. But this might help him especially when it comes to relationships and works with Europe and the European Union. So this may benefit Viktor Orban as well. So it'll be interesting to say the least, that is for sure, guys. Guys, while you're here, if you can already, please hit the like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. And share us across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe because it really does help support the channel. It would also really help this lovely young octopus here named Ollie. Ollie's been around for quite a while. He's in a foul mood because not enough people have hit the like button yet. So if you please do so, it would greatly appreciate him. And the orb and the lava lamp is there. Lava lamp has not formed yet, but it will do at some point, I'm sure. So the next one I've got for you guys, this one is from Middle Eastern Eye. More on the Sudan crisis. You guys, I've talked about how important I really do think there is a lack of media attention with what's happening in Sudan, and it's a disgrace. So this one from Middle Eastern Eye, as I said, what is the future of the Sudanese armed forces? A drone strike in the northeastern Sudan Sea of Abba highlights tensions and divisions within the army as it continues to fight the rapid support forces. So Sudanese armed forces is not as united as it may seem. We know that the rapid support forces are getting help and assistance from Russia. Forces that formerly were part of Wagner's group and now are just like I don't know I can't remember the official name for them, but they are getting support from Russia within it, and it is becoming a multiple countries and nations have started sticking their hands and getting involved in it, but not so much to help secure peace, but to pick a side per se in this. So rather than any kind of, it's still, to me, as far as I'm concerned, there's no sign of any kind of peace here. More than 25 million Sudanese are struggling in this country. Many have already fled the country to neighbouring countries. One of the biggest and most frustrating things for me is how much there are people, a lot worse than what's happening in Gaza. Many millions more who are suffering from famine and hunger within Sudan than they are in Gaza. Reports that I've come across have said. And yet we talk about Israel and Gaza, but we don't hear a peep about what's happening in Sudan. From a geography perspective is the reason why, guys. But let's read into what's happening here, guys. So, drone strike that killed at least 12 people in the city of Abika in northern Sudan on Tuesday night has highlighted divisions and tensions within the Sudanese Armed Forces, the SAF, which has been at war with paramilitary rapid support forces, the RSF, for almost a year. Members of the Al-Bahrain bin Malik Brigade, which is made up of members of militant groups now fighting alongside the army, has finished their Ifro meal when they were attacked. The brigade, which is aligned with Sudan's Islamic movement and members of the administration of the former autocrat Omar al-Bashir, have never been struck like this outside the capital Khartoum. The perpetrators of the bombing remains a mystery, with no group coming forward to claim responsibility. Abra is under army control, with the nearest RAF presence around 200 kilometers away. The RSF has a special task battalion capable of launching drone strikes, as it did on March the 20th, which targets the army's artillery piece in Shendi, another city in northern Sudan. The army is also worried for months that its area of control in eastern and northern Sudan could be reached by attacks by the RSF drones. But the absence of a strong response from the army And the fact that the attack happened deep into army territory has given rise to a theory that al-Bashir bin Malik brigade fighters are being targeted by people that are normally fighting alongside. There have even been reports, such as this one in the Sudan War Monitor, that the attack was a false flag operation carried out by the artillery pro-war brigade and its own fighters. I don't buy the false flag theory. One Western military analyst who cannot be named because of he's working directly on the war told me, listen, but the way the SAF insiders talk to me suggests some factions of SAF were involved. So even people within their own forces who are trying to deal with this, guys, even that is not helping them. One scenario, for example, is that the drones did come from the RSF, but were tolerated by certain elements of the SAF who disagree with the popular mobilization. Almost a year into the war, which has displaced over 8 million people and led to the deaths of tens of thousands more, this popular mobilization has seen Sudanese armed forces morph into an outfit that contained fighters from hugely diverse ideological backgrounds and from across the whole country. These people have come together to fight the RSF, which has its power base in Darfur in western Sudan, which has been accused of a host of atrocities, including carrying out rational motivated massacres targeting the Black African Malayan group. There have been accusations already that they have complicit, that some of the actions of the rapid support forces have been on almost as far as genocidal in some stories that I've heard, because they have literally gone and burnt villages down to the ground. In some cases, I've heard reports in the past, along with potential rape and pillaging in certain places as well. Along with the ranks and files, the army now has a member of resistance committees, the nationwide collective of local groups that have been at the forefront of Sudan's democratic revolution, and other radical youth organizations such as Anger Without Borders and Kings of Clashes, fighting alongside groups like the Al-Bahai bin Malik Brigade, their ideological opposites. And these ideologies obviously can turn into, rather than united, obviously, in recovering their lands, they think more about their own ideology and religion rather than the whole reason why they're fighting together. More recently, the rebel groups from across Darfur, including signatories to the Juba Agreement of 2020, have joined the army alongside thousands of other fighters from the Blue Nile State, Eastern Sudan and South Kordofan, as well as al-Bahai bin Malik and other groups affiliated with the Sudanese Islamic Movement, the SIM, are present. And many officers were part of or connected to the National Congress Party, the NPC of Bashir, which was predecessed by the National Islamic Front. Bashir ruled from Sudan from 1889 until 2019, when he was removed by the army's general Abu al-Fahi al-Bonham and RSF leader Mohammed Barnum Diago, better known as Helmi, in response to a popular revolution demanding his exit. Both Barnum and Helmi have been close to Bashir. For the most part, when people are talking about Islamic influence in Sudan, they're talking about the collection of former regime elements, the Kaizen as they called in Sudan, which traditionally held a lot of indirect power under the Bashar regime. Cameron Hudson, a former CIA analyst and fellow at the CSIS African Program, told MEE. There's a fear that these forces are very much still active and live in the background of the army, and they are staging a return for themselves, Hodgson said, while adding he didn't think there was a single overarching command or coordinated body. The question of influence and control is of phenomenal one in Sudan, as well as a key component of the RSF messaging, which portions itself, with the help of Western communication experts and financing from the United Arab Emirates, its main partner as a democratic force intent on keeping Bashar's people from regaining power. With so many different ideas and motivations that play, the future and compensation of Sudanese armed forces is uncertain and up for grabs. There is also a key factor in discrete ongoing ceasefire negotiations taking place in Cairo and the then US Saudi brokered talks scheduled for Jeddah on April the 18th. Finally. So it's a very discreet one, but finally there might be something. And with some parts of the army more willing to strike a deal than the RSF than others. Well, this is very key. Right, we need to keep an eye on this. April the 18th, this is going to be crucial. I'm sure Middle East and I will have more on this when this happens. Yosef Eflik, Henry's political advisor, told MEE that the RSF does not have a delegation in Cairo. We didn't receive any invitation, he said. The US Special Envoy said talks will begin in Jeddah on April the 18th, but I think SAF is not unified and there's no centre to make negotiation decisions, Eric has said. So they might not even turn up to the negotiations. They need a big victory to sit down and negotiate, and it may not come soon, and they may lose more, the ISF advisor told MEE. Shari al-Dama Kapeshki, the army's deputy commander, is believed to be more willing to negotiate, while Yashir, another senior general, is intent on continuing the fight. The head of Egyptian intelligence was recently in Port Sudan pushing army commanders to make progress with talks. I think that the army will hold this coalition of group and officers together with great difficulty. Kolu Qatar, a Sudanese analysis and founding director of think tank Confluence of Irish History, told Middle Eastern Eye. One of the motivations for this war was the RSF's desire to avoid integration into the army. It was loyal to the army and then broke away because it wanted to angle for a larger piece of the pie, said Kala, who emphasized the appeal and the lure of Sudan's war economy, which has seen both sides profit from a diffuse network of Illinois trade. Middle Eastern Eye has previously spoken to Darko Markets, named after Henry, which sells goods looted in the war, and on the smuggling business that fighters on both sides are profiting. There is an incentive to keep the war going, Kala said. So like everything, guys, it's about money again. So some people of the main army and RSF are probably keen on rather continuing the fight because it's good for money, rather than with the intent of actually wanting to do something that would actually benefit the people. Army commanders, buoyant by victories in Khartoum, its twin city Ottoman, advances on other fronts have become more default and confident in their addresses to soldiers and the Sudanese people. In an address given to graduating forces from the Sudan Liberal Movement, headed by Mindi Mawato, a warlord turned governor of the Darfur Kabash, who is also a member of the Sudanese Sovereignty Council, said that rebel forces had agreed to be fully integrated into the army. Commissioner reiterated the unity of the army. Mamandoué, who the RSF no longer considers governor of Darfur, said that his men were fighting a war for dignity and to liberate our country. Morande referred to the war as an existential one, a term used by two Sudanese officials aligned to the army in an interview with Middle Eastern Eye. Both officials pointed to the large number of foreign fighters present in the RSF, saying that there were almost 50,000 non-Sudanese fighters now inside the country, and that the army truly reflected the character of the nation. A rebel movement source, who asked not to be named, said thousands of troops from the Darfur groups, including Malawi's SLM and Justice and Equality Movement, the JEM, Mustafa Tambar's SLM faction, and other Masalik self-defense forces have trained in eastern Sudan and have already joined the army in its fight against the RSF in Khartoum. Thousands of fighters from Darfur's armed movements have been trained by the SAF in Kassala, Jawarika, and Jobok areas, and even early-trained militia experts have helped train them in urban warfare, a source told Middle Eastern Eye. Parts of those forces are already participant in the battles of Ottoman to expel the RSF, he said. New battalions from JMN, which is headed by current Finance Minister Jibril Emron, graduated last month for Kasani State in graduation ceremony attended by the Army Chief Barum. In a video shared on social media, Musa Haliki, an enemy of Helmi who was like the RSF chief, a former Jadawi leader, declared that his men were ready to fight alongside the army. So a lot of these small little tribal factions and groups from different parts of Sudan are coming under the main army, but there's also, like it said there, not everyone is completely and totally united, and there are some who want peace, some who don't, some want liberation, and it's about trying to get everybody on the table to agree to some kind of ceasefire, which is obviously a problem. But obviously there are some within the main army who believe that it's beneficial to keep it going as well. So it's a very complex situation, Sudan. It is a very complex one, that is for sure. It's not a simple case of one side or the other. It's not as simple as that here. I welcome your return from Libya. I know you have suffered from a long time because of the bad things that have been done by some criminals. Haliki, who was arrested in 2017 and then released from the prison in 2021, told his forces it's time to fight for your dignity and dignity of the entire country against the mercenaries, he said, referring to the RSF. The ISF responded by attacking rebel movements across different paths of Darfur in the last few days, killing and arresting soldiers and civilians believed to be close to the rebels. Asug Anur, a spokesperson for the SLM Morani faction, told MEE that the ISF had attacked the militia locally, around 60 kilometers north of El Fashir, the capital of North Darfur. He said paramilitary had abducted some soldiers and citizens and taken them hostage. Anur added that RSF-aligned militias had attacked the liberal area of East Darfur State, killing 2 people, looting the area and displacing thousands. By committing these actions, the RSF is intentionally trying to blackmail the rebel movement, including the SLM Milwaukee faction, he said. Another faction of the SLM, see, there's a lot of factions here, it's a lot to try and keep up with, headed by Abel Wadi Anur, has accused the RSF of attacking its forces in Darfur, despite its stated neutrality in the war. Very hard to be living in Sudan and consider yourself neutral, if I'm absolutely honest. Parts of the SLM-AW, led by Abdel Wadi Anyo, which is led by a general known as Karagoga, has engaged in fighting against the RSF in central Darfur State. Other Darfur rebel groups have similarly claimed to have been attacked by the RSF. The paramilitary group has admitted attacking rebel forces, but said this was because they were supporting the army's military base in El Fashir. We noticed that the rebel movements have a lot of movements in North Darfur State and around the city of El Fashir. We also intercept convoys of supply accompanied by the rebel movements, which is going to assist the SAF military base in El Fashir, and the RSF had said in a statement. For Marawi, the incorporation of rebel fighters into the SAF is the first step towards the formation of a new national army. You'd like to hope so, but we're still a long way off from this. Al Attila, the army general, who's also a member of the Sovereignty Council, said the SAF is still open to the entire Sudanese population, including resistance committees, Islamic rebels movements, and anyone else. This war screams for the dignity of the Sudanese people. So the majority of the Sudanese people who are currently supporting the SAF, due to the well-known and wide violations and insults to civilian command by the RSF, one Sudanese expert, who did not want to be named, told MEE. This is true. I have to say this last piece there is very true, because I've heard more atrocities committed by the RSF than I have done by the Sudanese army. By the SFF, sorry. I've heard more of it from the Rapid Support Forces than anything else. And it's only getting worse. Salah Amar, a political analyst, disagreed and said the addition of Darfur rebels would not make much difference politically or militarily. Let me also stress here that the formation of new national and professional army cannot happen now, and the current military government he told Middle East and I. Yes, I absolutely fundamentally agree with that. That there's no chance of that happening right now. There's just it's way too chaotic right now for any of this. I'd like to think that both sides will get around the table on the 18th of April in Cairo, but I'm not holding my breath either for it. But it is good that the US and Saudi Arabia may be doing something, may not be doing something, when it comes to negotiating some kind of ceasefire there. The US and Saudi broke a deal. How long have they been doing that, though? That's the thing. Is there going to be enough pushing and shoving for it? Is there going to be enough to ensure that there's going to be something done? What's going to be given? You know, what's going to be given? What's going to give to call for a ceasefire? To stop the bloodshed, to stop the so many innocents suffering in the result of this conflict is a question that I ask myself. And it just feels like to me that, you know, the Rapid Support Forces will not want to integrate into the main army. They don't want to do that. I think and I know that they're going to be influenced even more by foreign powers such as Russia as well. So that's not going to go away. So these issues are many in Sudan. How it's going to be addressed and how it's going to be dealt with is going to be one we're going to be talking about for a while, guys. So, guys, we are nearly 40 minutes in. Gone a lot longer than I expected. Got a couple more stories for you guys. Hopefully, I'll keep it under at least an hour and a half, but we'll see how things go. Got a funny video to break the ice here, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this funny video here from Foil and Arms, which is entitled "True Facts About Nightclubs," guys. True facts about nightclubs.
Okay, we're revamping the nightclub, yeah? We want this to be the fun place to be, with good vibes and a great atmosphere. Any ideas?
How about we get rid of all the tables?
Yes! People drink more when there's nowhere to put their pints down.
What about we get rid of all the chairs as well?
Okay, anything else?
What kind of music are we going to play here?
I was thinking loud.
How about very loud?
Or very, very loud?
Any particular genre?
Oh, well, it's that loud, you can't really tell.
Although, if it is that loud, people won't be able to have conversation.
So they'll drink more.
Perfect.
You know the way we have a VIP section?
Yeah.
And we have a VVIP section?
Oh, I think I know where this is going, yeah.
I was thinking we could add an extra euro to the drinks.
Love it, with an emphasis on fun, good vibes, and a great atmosphere.
Should we make the dance floor bigger to get more people dancing?
Or we make it smaller, because everybody knows when you're dancing, you're not drinking!
Yeah. Maybe the bouncers could be more friendly.
Or more passive-aggressive,
Yes.
Even better.
but with an emphasis on fun, good vibes, and
And a great atmosphere.
What about free shot on entry?
sounds expensive. What's in them?
It's basically gone off Capri Sun.
I can't have a problem with that.
Could we add another euro to the drinks? Just...
I mean, why not?
Yeah, okay, just going to write that.
The smoking area, it's very cold.
What about we get heaters?
I know those ones. The button doesn't work. You stand 2 feet away, you're freezing. Any closer, it melts the crown of your head.
The cloakroom. At the moment, we're giving out these tiny little paper tickets and people are just easily losing them. And that's working really well for us. But we have to find a way to charge people who are stuffing scarves into their coat sleeves. It's just a massive problem.
Now, cashback is a proven way for a bar to make money.
Because it speeds up the queue later on in
No,
the
because
night.
people forget to collect their cashback.
Okay, so in conclusion, we're going to reopen the nightclub, but with an emphasis on fun, good vibes.
Sorry
and
to
a
interrupt.
great-
I have to say it now or it'll be out of my mind. We need to add an extra euro to the drinks.
Doomed up.
Oh, almost forgot to turn on my mic there. Hope you guys enjoyed that one there from Foil and Arms. I've never actually been to a nightclub, so I can't comment on what things and what you actually should and shouldn't have on a nightclub. I don't know about too much about nightclubs myself. Ollie, what's your assessment of nightclubs? Do you know enough about them? Oh my God, you're blocking the lava lamp. What's your position? He said he's been to a few raves, but he won't tell me about them. Yeah, he's been to a few raves apparently. Very weird octopus, that's for sure, guys. So just before I go to the next article, guys, if you haven't already, please consider joining. If you want to financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Just 99p makes a real difference when it comes to supporting the work that I do here, when I cover various stories, not just in the UK, but across the world like I do here today, as well as providing content for you guys. Short videos every 6 hours, 24/7 on here, TikTok, Instagram, and now on Twitter as well. So trying to get news and content out there is not easy, and it takes a lot of work in doing so. So everybody who has been a YouTube member, anyone who has done a super chat or financially supported me in any way, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate. For those who continue to financially support me and rejoin as members, thank you as well. It really does make a difference. However, if you want other ways of financially supporting me, other ways you can do that is by buying me a coffee. I'll get a bigger cut of your money if you wanted to do it that way rather than through YouTube. Another way you could also financially support me is via Patreon. Unlike some other YouTubers who simply just have a Patreon account and don't do anything with it, my one has much content on there. I have a vast archives of content for Patreon members there if you decide to join. Not only will you get access to some interesting stuff, a little bit of personal stuff, but also you also get access to extra content as well. So I also do some other additional news content that I covered on Patreon as well as I do additional content on Rumble as well, and you can check out both of them. The links are in the description, so feel free to go and check them out. Links for them and all other social medias are in there as well. So thank you for all those who choose to follow me on them. It is greatly appreciated. So this next one, guys, is from the Association Press, and it's regarding Elon Musk, and it's a very interesting one, to say the least. So Elon Musk will be investigated over fake news and obstruction in Brazil after a Supreme Court order. Ooh, Ooh. Let's read into this before I say anything. So, a cruising Brazilian Supreme Court justice that has included Elon Musk as a target in an ongoing investigation over the dissemination of fake news, and has opened a separate investigation into the US business executive for alleged obstruction. In his decision, Justice Alexander Domolskis noted that Musk on Saturday began waging a public disinformation campaign regarding the top court's action, and that Musk continues the following day. Most notably with comments that his social media company X would cease to comply with the court's orders to block certain accounts. Musk, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, who took over Twitter in late 2022, accused Morris of suppressing free speech and violating Brazil's constitution, and noted on X that users could seek to bypass any shutdown of the social media platform by using VPN or virtual private networks. Yeah, there's I'm not quite sure what Brazil are going to do here, because even if what Musk is saying here on this last point paragraph is true, even if because you can't shut out, like, let's just say, for instance, like, it's the same thing if they ban TikTok in America. People will go out of their way to still try and get TikTok on their platforms because it's still popular. Even if Brazil had banned X in Brazil, people will still go out of their way. People who still use it and it's their source of information will still use it. So it's gonna hurt people, and especially people who like using certain social media platforms. When you take that away from them as a government, you also invoke a lot of anger from people who use them as well. But I also understand why Brazil are doing this, because Brazil are basically saying you're lying about, you're making stuff up about things that we're saying, which is about our courts, which is not true as well. So they're accusing Elon Musk of this as well. So it's it's definitely I don't think Elon Musk is going to be visiting Brazil anytime soon. I think that's one thing for sure, guys. So Musk will be investigated for alleged intentional criminal instrumental of X as part of an investigation into a network of people known as digital militias, who allegedly spread defamatory fake news and threats against Supreme Court justices. According to the text of the decision, the new investigation will look into whether Musk engaged in obstruction, criminal organisation, and incitement. The flagrant conduct of obstruction of Brazil's injustice, incitement of crime, the public threat of disobedience and court orders, and future lack of cooperation from the platforms are facts that disrespect the sovereignty of Brazil, the Morals wrote on Sunday. Ex-press office did not reply to a request for comment from the Association Press, and Musk hasn't publicly commented as of Monday morning, apart from his brief post on X. Brazil's political right has long characterized the Morals as overstepping his bounds to clamp down on free speech and engage in political persecution. In the digital militias investigation, lawmakers from the former President Jair Bolsonaro's circle have been imprisoned and his supporters' homes raided. Bolsonaro himself became a target of the investigation in 2021. The justice in March 2022 ordered a shutdown of the messaging app Telegram nationwide on the grounds that the platform repeatedly ignored requests from Brazilian authorities, including a police request to block profiles and provide information linked to blogger Alan dos Santos, an ally of Bolsonaro accused of spreading falsehoods. The Santos account is one of those blocked on X in Brazil, less than 48 hours after issuing his orders in 2022. The Morals says Telegram had complied and permitted it to resume operations. The Morals defenders have said his decision, although extraordinary, are legally sound and necessary to purge social media of fake news as well as extinguish threats to Brazilian democracy. Notoriously underscores by the January 8, 2023 uprising in Brazil's capital that reassembled the January 6, 2021 insurrection in the US capital. Judicial decision can be subject to appeal, but never to deliberate non-compliance, Luis Roberto Bolsonaro, the Supreme Court Chief Justice, said in a statement on Monday. On Saturday, Musk, a self-declared free speech absolute, said on X that the platform would lift all restrictions on blocked accounts and predicted that the move would likely dry up revenue in Brazil and force the company to shutter its local office. But principles matter more than profit, he wrote. Brazil is an important market for social media companies. About 14 million Brazilians, or about 18% of the population, access X at least once a month, according to market research group eMarketer. Musk later instructed users in Brazil to download a VPN to retain access if X was shut down, and wrote that X would publish all of its demands, claiming they violate Brazilian law. most of these draconian demands of any country on the earth, he later wrote. Brazil's constitution was drafted in the 1964-1985 military dictatorship and contains a long list of aspirational goals and prohibits against specific crimes such as racism and more recently homophobia, but freedom of speech is not absolute. Musk had not published the Moral's demands as of Monday morning, and prominent blocked accounts remain so, indicating X has yet to act based on Musk's previous pledges. Moral's decision warning against doing so said each blocked account that X eventually reactivates will entail a fine of 100,000 reses, that's $20,000 per day, and that those responsible will be held legally to account for disobeying a court order. Including Elon Musk in the digital militia investigation is one thing, blocking X is another. With this, Morales is making a nod saying that he didn't remain in here amid provocations from Elon Musk. Carlos Afro, director of Rio de Janeiro based think tank Institute of Technology and Science, said by phone from Washington, "It's a warning shot so that lines aren't crossed." Afrano, a professor of civil rights at the State University of Rio de Janeiro, on Monday was attending a simposium at Georgetown Law School about Brazil's business climate and legislation, and that the implementations of morale decision for Musk and X were the talk of the town. Afrano was also wondering what the Buin spat must mean for Musk's Starlight satellites that provide internet service to remote Brazilian regions like the Amazon rainforest and the Plaza wetlands. Oh, that's a good point. He could shut them down. That would upset a lot of Brazilian people as well. See, this is the thing. This is why you got to be. Social media has far more influence than these social media platforms have so much influence, guys. It's very dangerous. It's really dangerous that Elon Musk has this kind of power on governments. You know, it can really influence people. Botswana, who bestowed Musk with a prestigious medal when he visited Brazil in 2022, was among those encouraging Musk to follow through with his promise to publish documents saying that they would reveal how the top electoral court was pressured to interfere in the 2022 election that he lost. Botswana has often made such claims without any evidence. I don't think Musk has that, if I'm honest, but we will see. If he publishes them, then great. Yeah, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. Our freedom today is largely in his hand, Botswana said about Musk in a live broadcast on social media Sunday night. The action he's taking, what's been saying, hasn't been intimidating, and said he's going to put forward this idea of fighting for freedom for our country. That's good. The lower house of more lawmakers who is in charge of handling the bill that aims to establish rules for social media platforms said on X that the episode underscores an urgency of bringing the proposal to a vote. It was approved by the Senate in 2020. Brazil's Attorney General on Saturday night had already voiced their support for regulation. We cannot live in a society in which billionaires democrats abroad have control of social networks and put themselves in a position to violate the rule of law, failing to comply with court orders and threatening our authorities. Social peace is non-negotiable, Jordan Messias wrote on X. I think this is a very powerful statement here. Yeah, and this is the thing. This Elon Musk has this influence, and he's not a Brazilian. He's not a Brazilian citizen in any way, shape, or form, and yet he can have this. He has this power and influence on the country, and because of his position and his power, he feels that he's untouchable. And Brazil authorities and courts are saying no. We're not going to sit by and be rolled over. And President Luiz Adel Lula da Silva's Minister of Institutional Relations, Alexander Frofo, wrote on Monday that the administration will support the Supreme Court and its probes and work with Congress and civil society to build a regulatory framework. It's a very interesting story, to say the least, this one here. Obviously, I'll try and keep an eye on it as much as I possibly can. I don't know if it will go as far as like Starlink being shut down in Brazil, as X being removed from the country. It would be quite huge news if it was to go that far. But clearly, the tension is very high between Musk and Brazil. That is for sure. So we will have to keep an eye on for sure, guys. Moving on, guys, we're going to be looking at a story about Trump from NBC News. The headline is: Trump says abortion restrictions should be left to states, dodging a national ban. Trump has hinted that he might embrace a federal abortion ban after 15 to 16 weeks. God. So rather than actually, at the moment, obviously he's not president, and he could be president. So rather than actually like make a decision, he's going like, no, I'm going to let the states decide. Let them make a decision on abortion. Should it be left to states? I don't think so. I just don't. The way the Republicans and people are treating the whole abortion thing over there, it's just diabolical. Women should be allowed to choose for themselves. You do not have that right. It's not right what they have done to women's reproduction in America. Women should be allowed to make the decision themselves. It should not be up to politicians to make that decision. It really should not. I absolutely hate what they've taken away the Roe v. Wade protections. The former President Donald Trump said on Monday that abortion laws should be left to the states, many of which have enacted new restrictions since he appointed the Supreme Court justices who voted to overturn the federal protections for the procedure. In a 4.5-minute video released on his Truth Social platform, Trump made several false claims, including that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint in the wake of the Supreme Court's 2022 Dobbs decision. That's not true. A majority of Americans have consistently said in the polling that they favoured Roe v. Wade protections that the court dismantled. My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote, legislation, or perhaps both whether they decide they must be law of the land, Trump says. No. Everyone should have that right. You've taken away that right for women to be able, whether or not they have that abortion or not. In doing so, he refused to take a position on the national ban that has been promoted by some of his staunchest allies, including Senator Lindsey Graham, the RSC, and former White House aide Kellyanne Conway. In the past, Trump has hinted that he might embrace a national ban, referring to a 15 or 16-week threshold as consensus position. Trump did not say if he would do what he would do if he won the presidency and Congress sending him a national ban. Trump's silence on the matter upset at least one prominent anti-abortion group in Washington. Sudan B. Anthony, a pro-life American president majority Danny Fesker, who has pushed Republicans to adopt a weeks-based ban at the national level, said she is deeply disappointed in President Trump's position on the matter. Saying the issue is back to the states cites the national debate to the Democrats, who are working relentlessly to enact legislation and mandatory abortion throughout all 9 months of pregnancy, she said. If successful, they will wipe out state rights. Graham has also criticised Trump's stance, saying in a statement, Dobbs does not require the conclusion legally, and then pro-life movement has always been about the well-being of the unborn child, not geography. Just the unborn child thing. It should be their goddamn choice. The person having the baby, it should be their choice whether they want to have it or not. It should not be up to you or anyone else for the goddamn matter. Oh, God, I hate this. Democrats in Congress have signed onto a bill that would limit states' ability to restrict abortion rights. No Democrat in Congress has proposed mandatory abortion unless either party can control the House and 60 votes in the Senate at the same time. The prospects for legislating, limiting, or expanding abortion rights are dim. It's unlikely that Trump will be presented with an abortion ban bill. Over the last quarter of a century, and even since he became a candidate for office in 2015, Trump has been all over the map on the abortion issue. Since the 2024 campaign began, he offered few specifics about which policies he'd back in the post-Roe v. Wade era should he win the White House. Trump, a Florida resident, hasn't said where he stands on the state's six-week ban, where he teased support for a nationwide ban. His words often appeared to contradict formal statements put out by his campaign. Trump has said he supports exemptions in the cases of rape, incest, to protect the life of the mother, a position he reiterates on Monday's video, but the president does not determine how states make their laws. This is him basically sitting on the fence. He is responsible for this by putting those Supreme Court judges putting some of those when he was president. He is the reason Roe v. Wade got dismantled. Let's not forget that. Trump has frequently gloated over being responsible for the reversal of Roe v. Wade, which dismantles reproduction right protections, but also blamed the GOP's losses in 2022 on the issue, and has always said Republicans need to learn how to talk about abortion in a way that doesn't put off potential voters. Last September, more than a year after the abortion protections were reversed, he made a vague overtune in an interview with NBC News Meet the Press, and said that he would be a voice of consensus on abortion, but didn't specify how. Let me tell you what I do, he said. I'm going to come together with all groups and we're going to have something that's acceptable. At that time, he wouldn't sign a federal abortion ban at 15 weeks. In recent months, however, Trump's moved in the direction of a federal abortion ban, as some of his statements were at odds with his campaign. After reports surfaced that he told allies that he was mulling a federal abortion ban at 16 weeks, his campaign dismissed it as fake news. Soon after, Graham told NBC News that Trump is warming up to 16 weeks, and then Trump himself in an interview suggested he'd support a 15-week ban. The prospects of a top of the GOP ticket backing a federal abortion ban at a time when Democrats are elevating the issue is a central point of attack that could put swing state Republicans in a trick box. After some have attempted to moderate their positions, statements from Trump's campaign, however, seems to be leaning towards states' rights and not a federal ban. President Trump supports preserving life has also made clear that he supports states' rights because he supports the voters' right to make the decision for themselves. Brian Hughes, a Trump senior advisor, in the statements added, President Trump thinks voters should have the last word. After offering little clarity at a campaign rally last week at Grand Rapids, Michigan, Trump said his campaign would be making a statement next week on abortion after he was asked if he supported the 6-week abortion ban that the Florida Supreme Court had just upheld. President Joe Biden's campaign is seized on the Trump's varying remarks on abortion. Particularly, he boasts of having a hand in overturning Roe v. Wade, with the president saying in a new ad, Donald Trump doesn't like women, I do. And it's true. It's an obvious thing, guys. He doesn't want women to have the choice whether to have an abortion or not. He doesn't want women to have that choice. Biden continues that theme after Trump's video remarks on Monday, saying in a statement released by his campaign, Donald Trump has made it clear once again today that he is more than anyone in America the person responsible for ending Roe v. Wade. He is more than anyone in America responsible for creating the cruelty and the chaos that has enveloped America since the Dobbs decision. Trump is scrambling, Biden said. He's worried that since he will be the one responsible for overturning Roe v. Wade, the voters will hold him accountable for 2024. Well, I have news for Donald. They will. People will not forget that. It's important to remember if your choice on for Americans, the choice on Roe v. Wade, if you had that taken away from you, that choice, you remember it was because of Trump, because of the judges he put in, and the position was very, very clear that they were going to change that, and it's really infuriating to say the least, guys. And it just and we can it's still with all the court cases and everything going on around Trump, guys, there is also still that possibility that he could still be president against everything, guys. It really can happen. The lava lamp has formed in all of its glory, guys. Ollie is absolutely furious. Ollie doesn't like Trump. He really doesn't like it when I talk about Trump. He really is not a fan of him. He gets quite mad if I talk about him, if I'm honest. But I try and keep that between us, you know, because he doesn't really want to bring you guys down. I don't want to upset you guys about it, if I'm honest. So yeah, that's how he's feeling. One group of people who are feeling confident are those in Northern Ireland and Ireland. This is a news story from RTE, guys. So leaders express confidence that Northern Ireland institutions will remain stable. So not going to talk too much about this, but I just wanted to share this one about that. Obviously, since Jeffrey Donaldson is obviously stepping down as the DUP leader, is this going to cause any too much damage? Is it going to cause instability in Northern Ireland? My hope is that it won't. It will be minor to minimal damage, and that things will still keep on going for the benefit of the people of Northern Ireland. I am confident that they will be able to keep things going without it. So let me just read into it for you guys. So Taoiseach has expressed confidence that the devolved institutions in Northern Ireland remain stable despite the leadership upheaval within the DUP. DUP leader Jeffrey Donaldson resigned on the 29th of March after being charged with historical sexual offences. Leader Varadkar has undertaken his final engagement at Taoiseach, visiting Northern Ireland for a meeting of cross-border ministers. He and other members of the cabinet attended a meeting of the North-South Ministerial Council established under the Good Friday Agreement. They were greeted by the First Minister Michelle O'Neill and Deputy First Minister Emma Little-Penegay ahead of the meetings with ministers of the Northern Ireland Executive in Co Armagh. Speaking to reporters after the meeting, Mr. Varadkar said, "I am confident the institutions are stable and will be sustainable. Events happen in politics, whether it changes in leadership. There will be elections for the House of Commons, there will be elections for the Dáil, all within next year. And what's really important is that the institution should be able to function through them and withstand any disruption that may occur. And that's happened in the past, and I'm sure it can in the future," he said. "And I know from my experience, having served in government for quite some time, having observed Northern Ireland institutions function and not function, what we know is that whether they fail, they tend to not be re-established for many years. And I think it's always bearing in mind that we make sure that we don't see another break happen." Taoiseach Michelle Martin stressed the need for ongoing stability at Stormont and said that he saw a very keen engagement from very keen commitment from members of the executive and indeed from its own cabinet to the agenda that was ahead of us of a north-south basis. So I think there is a resilience here. And I think that continuality, that certainty, that stability, and I think it's important for the people of Northern Ireland, he said. Mrs. O'Neill said that it was business as usual in the Stormont Assembly returns following the Easter break. "We're here today at joint heads of the government to be part of the North-South Ministerial Council meeting, and what public deserve and want is leadership. We're prepared to provide that leadership," she said. "We've spoken to all executive colleagues. Everybody was here today to play their part in terms of their own ministerial responsibilities. We're leaving here very quickly to get back to the Assembly because we have much business to do." Miss Little-Penegay added, "I'm absolutely determined to provide the stability what I can do to ensure that the executive can continue in a positive tone." He said, "In relation to Unionism in general, I believe that Unionism has a very strong and capable leader in the interim DUP leader Gavin Robertson. He has my full support, and I know he has the support of Unionism across the piece. I wish him all the best in the weeks and months ahead. I think he will do a fantastic job and that strong leader for Unionism at this time." Later that evening, Mr. Varadkar will visit Ayres, though, sorry, I can't say that word, guys, to officially hand in his resignation as Taoiseach to the President, Michelle D. Higgins. In recent months, the government has announced hundreds of millions of euros investment in projects in Northern Ireland. It includes 600 million euros in the building of the A5 linking Co Donald to the Co Moral through countries Tyrone and Derry. 50 million euros have been set aside for development of GIA's at Casement Park in Belfast. There will also be funding to improve cross-border rail links to build a new bridge between Warrenport Co Down with Olmouth in Count Lou. Today's meeting of the North-South Ministerial Council is the first since July 2021. The DUP withdrew from the council in 2021 in opposition to the new Brexit train arrangements in Northern Ireland. The move was subsequently deemed to be unlawful by Belfast Court. The party later pulled out of the Stormont executive in February 2022, collapsing the power-sharing institutions for 2 years. The executive was restored a year earlier, following a deal between the DUP and the British government. The meeting is an important affirmation of the re-establishment of normal politics on the island. It comes at a time of political influx in both Ireland and the Republic. Simon Harris is poised to take over as Taoiseach following the Dáil vote tomorrow. Unionists will take an opportunity to assess the man who will be dealing with in the months ahead. Mr. Harris said he is not prioritising the United Ireland and is instead focusing on practical areas and cross-border cooperation. Speaking to RTS, The Weeks in Politics, he said he was insistently wanted to see a united Ireland, but that his priority was harnessing the full potential of the Good Friday Agreement. "I think that the First Minister and Deputy First Minister are doing the people of Northern Ireland proud. I congratulate them and thank them for the stability that they brought and what's been a very difficult period in Northern Ireland, even in recent weeks. The priority right now, in my view, is for the people of Ireland to live in peace, live in prosperity, get to know each other better, cooperate and collaborate." And I couldn't agree more. So, just a bit of information there for you guys about, obviously, looking to try and keep to business as usual, both within Northern Ireland and the Republic, and couldn't really agree more with too much of that. So hopefully there won't be too much stability, and actually things can start really getting start getting done once everyone returns from the Easter break, and I imagine that would be within the best interest of those on the island for sure. While obviously I don't have the knowledge when it comes to Ireland and Northern Ireland politics, I just wanted to share that with you guys about, that they're confident that things won't be too uneased or in any way, shape or form for you guys, for those who are over there, guys. So we're almost at the end of World News Round, guys. I have one more story for you guys. If you haven't already, please hit the like button and share us across social media so others are notified of this video. And thank you for those who have watched all the way through. I greatly appreciate it. This last one I've got for you guys is a short but sweet one, guys. And it's from African News, and it's a tragedy. Of course, we hear about obviously boat crossings that crossing over from the Channel. We obviously hear about some that's traveling from Tunisia and Egypt along there all the way up in the Mediterranean to trying to get to Europe. But this one here is from Mozambique. So over 90 people were killed after a boat sank. So more than people were killed off Mozambique's northern coast on Sunday when the makeshift ferry they were traveling in sank, according to local media. The boat was carrying 130 people, including many children, who were attempting to make the crossing to Mozambique's island from Liga in Naupara province. Local online media TV Dalom Napa reported that some of those on board had been travelling to attend a fair on the island, while others were fleeing a chloridica outbreak. Namibia Secretary of State Jamie Nilka was reported saying that misinformation about an alleged chloridica outbreak caused people to panic and board the boat. So apparently there wasn't an outbreak, but people jumped on it because they believed there was one. Because the boat was overcrowded and unsuited to carry passengers, it ended up sinking, said Mr. Nico. While rescuers' efforts continued on Monday, only 5 people of the 130 on board have so far been rescued, according to officials. So this is the official tweet from the ICRC in Africa. Around 46,000 people have sought refuge in Napa from the conflict in Cabo Delgado. Red Cross movement partners have already supported them with chloridica prevention, hygiene kits and household items for 300 families. Alongside neighbouring countries Zimbabwe and Mali, Mozambique has in recent months been affected by a deadly chloridica outbreak that authorities are battling to contain. Since October 2023, Mozambique has reported 13,700 confirmed cases and 30 deaths. Namibia province has been one of the worst affected by the outcome. The northern province has seen an influx of people fleeing confidence in neighbouring Cabo Delgado province, with the latest wave of violence in February resulting in over 33,000 new arrivals. It's really horrible story, to say the least, guys. Absolutely, my thoughts and prayers are with the friends and family of those who have lost their loved ones on there. When you hear story, you don't hear much about these kind of stories in other places around the world, but it's not a nice thing at all. And the desperation that people, it's that desperation when they hear something terrible or tragic coming their way or whatnot. People panic, people react, and sometimes you're not always thinking straight with it, and just hopefully they can recover more people. At the time of this recording, I haven't heard anything more than that from the Mozambique incident, but cross fingers that more lives are saved, but I'm not going to hold my breath either on it. So a terrible story, to say the least, guys. Not really one I wanted to end on, but originally, I thought it was one to share, because we don't always, I try to cover as much different stories as I can, but it's important to remember that people out there are dying, and we don't always hear about it. So guys, we have come to the end of the World's News Round. What did you guys make of some of the stories today? Ollie's a lot happy now because I don't know why he's happy. I guess it's because it's been a long show today. The orb has, the lava lamp has